Jesus. I am your host, Frank Tony, and this is my better looking than me host, co-pastor Angela Tony, my wife now of going on 31 years. And I'm so excited, I'm so delighted to have her with us. I'm glad to have you with us today, honey. We call it victory in Jesus. We want to let you know that you do have victory in Jesus, regardless of what your circumstances may be, regardless of the trials and the tribulations. Please understand, and this is our message for you today, is that victory in Jesus belongs to you. Well, we've got a great show lined up for you today. We are excited. We are so delighted to have someone with us who is no stranger to this community, but they're doing great things in this community. And I'm speaking of none other than Pastor Gary and Diane Hoffman. Welcome to the show, Pastor and Pastor Hoffman.
Thank you all for having us. It's a pleasure.
When we tell people about interfaith, the first thing they say, oh, that's the bubble church.
Right.
You're known as the bubble church, you're known as the dome church, you're known as probably several different names. I'm sure you've heard yourselves, but we want you to know that you are known and you are esteemed in this community. We consider you, we count you as pillars within the community. So thank you so much for being on the show today. We know that time is so critical. Time is of the essence these days. So the fact that you've chosen to spend some of your time with us today, we're honored to have you. And I want you to share with the folks, you were sharing with us when you started the ministry some 20 years ago, you were, I think you said 30 members strong at the time.
Right.
Where did you start? How did you get started?
We moved here in the fall of '92, and the church hired us, and we came from Indiana, and it had about 30 people, but they did have a building on Callaway Road up by the Speedway there, and so we just began to put vision into people's hearts that we wanted to touch our community, we wanted to reach people, and I think as we began to honor God like that, He began to bless us, and we were grateful for that. We moved into the Dome Church in '99 and have been there ever since. And we've got drawings now for future sanctuary that we are believing God for.
Praise God.
And dreaming for. And so it's been a journey, and we don't forget where we started.
That's right.
But somebody can jump in the middle and they think, well, you've always been there. But as ministers, you and I know, don't despise the day of small beginnings.
That's right.
Things just don't take off.
No.
And usually if it does, if it just takes off, you usually have a lot of issues with that because you're not ready for it, you're not. And so it's been a long journey. God has been faithful, and I like to think that we have been to some degree. I'm sure we've missed it some, but we've tried to hit more than we miss.
That's the goal. And you said something that was very relevant when you said when you start off really fast, sometimes you encounter things in the process that you weren't quite ready for. And one of the things that Pastor always tell us, he says, the difference between growing and swelling.
Yes,
and when you swell, you're unhealthy. Something's in the process is not working right. But when you grow, you know that you're growing from a healthy place in the Lord. So thank you for bringing credence to that and being an example of what growth looks like and not swelling.
Yeah, that's a good point right there.
It is. I mean, it's just slow and steady. And I think, as we began, like there was no nursery or anything, so, I would go and help out in that area and just, grow and just put your hand to the plow, no matter what it was, just to go ahead and do it. And I think God just saw we were faithful, and it was slow and steady, which was great because we didn't have the panic mode, on what to do. Although at times you do feel panicky, but God just seems to give you who you need at the right time to fill whatever need there is.
His grace is sufficient.
It is.
Amen.
In every situation and in every circumstances. And that's the beauty of watching a ministry grow.
Yes.
Is seeing His grace and seeing the growth in the people and in the families. That is a gift that God gives us as leaders, to see that change and that difference that He allows us to help be a part of.
Yes.
I like the analogy you gave there about the swelling. If all of a sudden we wake up one morning and we're swelling, we don't know why, something's wrong.
Right.
When you grow, you kind of know how you got there. Even though God's been behind the scenes, at least you've done this and this and this. And so that's I appreciate that word.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being an example of growth.
Well, now listen, we've got so much to talk about, but I feel pressed about this. You were saying just a moment ago how when you started out with 30-ish, around 30 folks. And Pastor Diane, you made mention that you didn't just sit back and wait on those 30 to perform, to do the works of the ministry, but you yourselves jumped in and did whether it was cleaning or picking up or whatever, you yourself. And I think that's so, I don't want to say the missing element, but I think we kind of, these ministries of today, modern ministries, we want to be more of leaders than we are helpers. You know, even the Bible lets us know that Jesus himself, he says, I come to be a servant, I come to serve. And you know, so I think for whether it's a small ministry or whether it's an up and coming ministry, one of the key factors that's going to aid us in our growth is that we have to be willing to serve. You agree with that? I know you do.
Absolutely. I mean, he's always been a wonderful example, you know, in my life and implemented in the church that, you know, and nothing wrong with it. Every church is its own style and its own way, and there's no right or wrong way. But for us, and I think for you guys, you know, we just always have put our hand to the plow. What needed to be done, we did it. And I think you train up excellent leaders that way because they see your work and your hard effort, that you're not just demanding someone else do the things that you don't want to do, but you're in there serving alongside. And that's always been our heart. When we have dinners or events, we're always in there working in the kitchen and doing things still to this day because we just love that. We love serving the people. And I think your people continue to see that and you know, appreciate that. And there are churches that don't operate that way, and that's okay too. I think every area that God has placed you in, whether it's Virginia or a big city, I mean, you have to adapt to that area.
That's right. That's right. You know, and again, he says, if you be faithful over the few, then I know that I can trust you with the many. So good for you, good for you. And I think your servanthood, your servant's mentality has been shown, it's been proven just by the increase that your church is experiencing. You were sharing before we came on how God over the years has brought you increase, he has brought you favor. And it didn't just come because you said, okay, God. But it came because you sacrificed, because you dedicated, because you did the things that a lot of people are not willing to do. And God says this to us, and I'll say it today. In fact, I'll say it to the family that's listening as well. God says, if you would do what other people won't do, he says, I'll let you go where places where other people can't go. So I'm convinced that we have to be willing to do whatever it is that needs to be done. So that, you know, we can be able to do the things that other people can't do.
Well, Jesus was a servant leader. And when the disciples became vainglorious and wanted to know, okay, who's going to sit at the right hand? I want to sit here and I want to sit here. He said, that's not my decision. Can you handle my suffering? Can you handle the process that I have to go through? And he exampled serving. He was a servant leader. And I think it's important in the hour that we're living in, and that we exemplify serving one another. One another. The world doesn't want to see us sit back and watch other people serve. The world wants to see leaders that are willing to serve.
You know, when Jesus called us, he didn't call us to be leaders, he called us to be followers. Come and follow me. And I think a great leader is also have to be a great follower. There has to be somebody above us and somebody below us. I'm being mentored, but I'm mentoring. And so it's just something that's always been in our heart to just put our hand in there and do just like everybody else. And God's been good to us, and we like it.
Yes, that's good. That's good. That's good words there. You said you're mentors, but you are still yet willing to be mentored.
Absolutely.
So you never outgrow the need for mentorship. And so needed today, because there's always someone who has been there, done that.
That's right.
And God put us here together that we could learn and glean and grow from one another. So what I don't know, you know, perhaps maybe something that you don't know, I know. And if we could put our heads and hearts together, then, you know, we would not have to experience a lot of the downfalls that comes along with serving in ministry.
You know, in Ezekiel it talks about the wheel within the wheel and the different creatures, and it said lightning jumped from one to the other. You know, just as we sit here, lightning is jumping back and forth, thoughts, words, ideas. And so just us fellowshipping together, you know, thoughts are coming to me just about those words about swelling and growing, I thought. And so it's important that not only the sheep be together, but shepherds be together.
Amen.
And just let the lightning of God jump from heart to heart, you know, and back and forth. And so I get a lot out of this.
Amen.
We do too. We do too. And that is like you said, that's a vital part of ministry, is us coming together, sitting down. We're not in competition with each other.
That's right.
We complete each other.
That's
Amen.
We're all
That's
in the
so true.
kingdom together.
That's
We
right.
all have a work to do, and there are enough
Yes.
souls out there for every church in this
Amen.
region to be in building projects.
Many times over.
So I'm
Amen.
thankful for the opportunity to glean from you, and for us to sit down and lightning to flash between us, so that we can share these things. And I think that it needs to be done more often.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
agree 100%.
Yes.
Yes. Speaking of together, partnering, actually this is our theme that we wanted to stand on. We wanted to make this show based upon is partnerships, you know, husband and wives serving together in ministry. You know, I think, honestly, I couldn't think of a better partner than I would like to have than my own wife. She knows me better than anyone else. She cares for me more than anyone else. She understands me better than most anyone else. So I think it's so special. It's so important. It's so good. And let me just go ahead and say on record, I may as well be honest, in the beginnings, I wasn't so sure that was going to be the case. But
Right.
working daily, you know,
Right. Yeah.
with your significant other, with your
Yeah.
wife, that could issue some challenges all of its own.
Yes.
But the one thing I found out, when you are operating, when you are working for the kingdom of God, you know, then God will ordain, God will, and now when she's not with me on certain assignments, and it just doesn't feel the same. So
right.
I appreciate you guys willing to be able to, you know, make that stance together as a husband and wife team. You know, we're in a day now. We may as well go ahead and talk about it. We're in a day now where women in ministry is not so accepted. It's not so appreciated. You know, I know for ourselves, when my wife first received her call, and I was told that we called you, we didn't call your wife.
Right.
That's a division. That's a divisive spirit.
That's right.
And God says, "What I've joined together, let no man put asunder." So today's world, I think we need to understand. We need a better understanding of what the purpose, what the role, the assignment of husband and wives in ministry consists of. And I just want to just for a moment or so talk about that. I know it's maybe an unpopular subject to some. It's even an uncomfortable subject, but nevertheless, it's a subject that needs to be addressed, because you are, Pastor Diane, just as effective. You love God just as much as Pastor Gary. And again, when Pastor Gary goes through certain trials and troubles, you're the one that he can rely on, count on, to aid him and help him. So if you don't mind, Pastor Diane, let's talk a little bit about, let's first go revisit your call to ministry, and how did that come about, and was it accepted, rejected, or?
You know, it was a process. You know, I think, when we moved here, the church was small, and, I didn't know a lot about the ministry at that time. And so it's kind of a neat thing to look back now how I grew into it. You know, I started with the nursery and developed that, then a children's church, and then kind of went on forward with that, and then just grew. And in the beginning, as the church was smaller, my main goal and my first purpose always is to be his support, and it's not to ever be as important as him, or to try to be seen more than him, but it's always to make sure he's taken care of, and he's got everything he needs, and just help out in every area. Then as the church grew, it's kind of like the calling grew at the same time, just like we were talking about growing earlier. If all that would have been put on me in the beginning to maybe to stand up and preach a sermon or whatever. You know, when we first moved here in 1992, I probably would have freaked out a little bit, but as we grew into it, you know, over the years, it just came natural. You know, just like a child grows from an infant to an adult, I think the ministry has those things too. And I think young people today see the end result and they want to jump in at the end, and they don't take the time to grow into it, you know, from the beginning. So I would say my call just totally kind of just developed over the years, and just kind of unfolded as God did. To say that God said, okay, at this certain date you're going to do this now, that didn't happen for me, but it was just, you know, being there for him, a support, and then just developing into what was needed at the time.
I totally agree with you. That's what happened to us.
Yes.
I didn't walk into this expecting to be a co-pastor,
That's
expecting
right.
to be any form of leader. All I wanted to do was see the vision come to pass.
Amen.
And do everything that my hands and heart and head and any other part that can do to help make sure that the vision became a reality.
Amen.
But in the process, God saw fit to take me to another level of leadership. And that was a process. It was, but I fought it.
I did too. I think that's who God uses, though, those that aren't really seeking it.
Yes, I cried. I fought. I was like, no, Lord, no, please. I'm happy being first lady.
Right.
I don't need to be anything else. I'm happy supporting my man.
Yes.
But he said, well, I'm the man that you are going to carry the word for now.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's better when you grow into it instead
Amen.
of just running into it.
Yes.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. Pastor Gary, how was it for you when Pastor Diane comes to you and says, you know, I've received a call, and how did it affect you?
I've always wanted it. I've always thought that she had it. Now, whether it was going to be a speaking ministry or not, she's been my greatest, other than the Lord, refuge, safe place. You know, we go home, she's my safe place. I can get away and be myself, and so to me, she's always been in it. I think she's growing into it, and even more speaking and some other things. But as far as my opinion, she's always been there and been in that ministry for me, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is beautiful. You know, and you're right. I totally agree with you. This year, at the end of December, we'll be married 31 years. I agree that ministry is always in them. It's just the degree that's being seen at that particular time, because as you say, they are ministers. You know, same here. You know, when things not going right, you know, the challenges, the struggles, and many times the stripes that come along with pastoring the church, that they're the one soul, they're the one listening ear that you know that you can go to and be able to share from your heart and not worry about whether I'm going to be violated, whether my trust is going to be violated or not. But so that in itself is a ministry. And I think as Christians, as people of God, we would do much better if we would embrace a pastor's spouse, whether it's male or female. When I say that, I guess I need to be clear. A husband's wife or a wife's husband in ministry together. I had to make sure we were on the same page there. But
it's a shame we got to talk like that.
It is. But I found out if we don't talk like that,
I'm with you.
then you know we'll lose what grounds we have gained.
Yes.
Amen.
So it is vital that the church as a whole embrace the family. You know, it should not be that my assignment, my ministry assignment, is to help keep your family together.
Right.
But then all the while, my family is being torn apart because you know the ideologies or the mindsets within the church says that you know a woman has no place in ministry.
Right.
I think today more than ever, God is showing us. He's always been there. You search the Holy Writ, and that many examples of God using women mightily in ministry. Deborah, Esther,
Amen.
Queen of Sheba, Mary, You know, and all of the names in between there that we didn't even call. I really don't understand, and maybe we can unearth some truths today or some answers today of the problem that men have with women. Here's a fact that I just learned not too long ago. Women make 77 cents to every $1 that a man makes. You know, their expenses, you know, this is just mind-blowing statistics, but all of their expenses, the clothing, all the needs, they pay more.
Right.
They pay more, but they make less. But they offer, what they offer to the family, to the husband, is so much more valuable than what we give them credit for. So what can we do as leaders to aid in this struggle, to open the dialogue to that we can get a better understanding? Is there anything that you can think of, Pastor Hoffman?
That's a great question. I should let you answer that. No, there's, I think just by the example that you all are leading,
Yes.
and that we are leading, is that when God calls a couple,
Yes.
a man or a woman, he almost has to call the spouse to some degree.
Right.
Maybe
Great
not the
point.
public,
Great point.
Right.
but certainly when the Bible, in the New Testament, the Bible calls us one.
Right.
Well, if you're the only one that shows up, there's only 50%.
That's right.
Because you're one.
Mm.
And so I think God is moving. I always believe God's intelligent. He can't call one and leave the other one behind because something's not going to be right at home.
That's right.
And so whether they're in the full-time ministry or not, I don't mean that, but their heart has to be completely hooked up.
Yes.
And I think as people see more and more examples, as you guys are leading, as we try to do, I think it'll help bridge some of those gaps. Because I think women are really taking a forefront in this day. They're really coming forth. God is using them. He said, I'll pour out my spirit on your sons and your daughters.
That's right.
And so that prophecy's coming to pass.
It is. And when he calls us the helper in
Yes.
Genesis, it doesn't imply inferiority.
That's right.
Right.
It simply, it more speaks of her worth and that she's valuable. It speaks of her responsibility and her instead of her worth.
Absolutely.
So I think if people could understand that and look at that from a different mindset, and a lot of times, unfortunately, it depends upon upbringing,
Yes.
it depends upon culture,
Yep.
it depends upon, there are a lot of factors that go into the mindset and the making of people and how they think.
It is.
And I think if they dare to just trust God to let them see things out of the box, they can be able to value the worth that a woman can bring to many aspects of ministry, of life. Now, I'm not saying that every pastor's wife is called a pastor
That's
with
right.
them.
That's right.
That's
And I
right.
don't think that's what you were saying
No.
either. But I do believe if that is her calling, she should be free to work in it.
Yeah.
And then just the part like you mentioned, helper.
Yes.
Well, if God was going to bring me a helper, he's kind of alluding to me, I can't do it by myself.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And so I better appreciate who he has brought along with me to get this job done, which is his vision. And so that just what you said there is, he brought us together. I have to have her,
Right.
or I won't be able to do what I'm supposed to do.
Very good, very good.
Excellent.
And while you were sharing that, all of you were sharing that, I was thinking of the command, the covenant that he made with Adam and Eve. You know, God, the first covenant, God made it with man and woman. He didn't make it with just man.
That's right.
The first marriage, he made it with man and woman. And then he said this. He says, now, after all else has been done, he says, I want you to be fruitful and multiply. As you just alluded to, I can't produce on my own.
That's right.
I need a helper. I need a partner. I need a coordinator. I need a cooperator, a co-worker,
Absolutely.
so that I can, and even Paul speaks, he calls it a co-laborer. You know, we need someone who can stand with us. He says, be fruitful. In other words, I want you to bring forth something. And then I don't want you to add to it. I want you to multiply it. I want you to bring it forth in an abundance. And so I really believe, and I sense that time is just about gone, but I really believe that the enemy, the adversary, in case you don't know, I'm talking about the devil. I
right.
really believe that the devil knows the power of a husband and wife team
Yes.
when it comes to ministry.
Amen.
I agree.
I agree.
Because that's one area of leadership, of ministry, that really comes under great scrutiny.
It is.
It comes under great
It
attacks.
does.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I've seen instances where the wife is equally, and maybe in some areas, a little more apt. I didn't want to use the word anointed to do certain things, but I've seen those kind of cases.
Sure.
But nevertheless, she'll be discounted because of her gender.
Right.
So you made a great point, Pastor Gary. Let us just continue to example what we're saying, example what we believe, and those who will allow the Holy Spirit to minister to their hearts and their minds. I think over time, in fact, you guys are a witness of that. Your church is growing exponentially throughout the year. So someone is seeing something that they like, that they appreciate. So I want to once again, before we finish here, I want to commend you. I want to salute you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Just right on this. Right on the highway there on 220.
Right.
And they're rushing me to get off the air, but I want to make sure that those who don't know where you are, would you give them some contact information, where you're at, how can they reach you if they're interested in hearing more about what you've said today?
Right on the corner of 220 and Wirtz Road,
Easy
by
to
the
find.
stoplight. Look to the right or left, depending on which way you're coming. You'll see the dome.
Yeah.
And it's funny that it's got all kinds of names, but it has become our symbol. And so everybody knows. So it's worked in our favor as well. And so I just appreciate you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
When you guys were building, I love to see.
Yes.
I like to see God moving.
Amen.
I think shepherds need to be more for shepherds
Amen.
and root for each other, because we know our struggles and our trials. And so I'm rooting for you as I know you're rooting for me. So
Absolutely.
big God bless you to you guys.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank you so very much. We have been so blessed today just by sitting and sharing with you and all that God has blessed you. And I agree that there was some lightning flashing between the four of us today. But I want to say to our family, we endeavor, we do our best here in Victory in Jesus. We do our best to bring you quality, to bring you encouraging and enlightening words so that you can realize that we understand there's so many things, so many challenges, obstacles that comes up against us each and every day. But we want to be that voice of hope. We want to be that beacon of light that you can turn to recognize and realize that, there is greater than what I have experienced. So today we've done that with Pastors Gary and Diane Hoffman. Such a great couple, such an effective ministry, such an anointed people of God. Amen. So if you ever have a desire or a need, and we hope that you will, if you want to experience what God is doing, visit them on the corner of Wirtz Road and 220. As he said, it's the Dome Church. You can't miss it. I promise you that you will feel like your time has not been wasted. So until the next time we come, we want you to know that you don't have any problems, because what you have is victory in Jesus. So may God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Until next time.